Welcome back to No Plan. If you are a fan of the channel, you may have already seen our original review of the first generation System76 Pangolin laptop. And you may know that we already had some wonderful experiences with that first generation, and it was a really solid laptop, but it also definitely had a few caveats and some real critiques from us. We are very grateful to System76 for sending us their second generation Pangolin to take a look at, where they have made quite a few improvements, yet a lot stays the same. It's definitely a next step sort of product. It's not a complete remodel, and we're actually very happy to see that because some of these improvements are fantastic. And a little note, this is not a sponsored review. System76 very graciously sent this to us for our own personal take on it, so we will be giving our own personal take, which includes the goods and the bads. So a lot of what you're going to see in this second generation is actually an improvement on the hardware and the overall chassis and build of the machine. And a lot of it is very, very nice. So what we're going to start off first is the raw specs of this machine and compare it to the previous generation. It's really not that different, as we come in with a Ryzen 9 now instead of a Ryzen 7, the 8945HS, and the old one had the 7840U. The reason why this is not that big of a difference, I know we're going from a Ryzen 7 to a Ryzen 9, is it is a 5.2 gigahertz CPU, whereas the old one was 5.1, and it's the same 8 cores and 16 thread. Now, of course, there's going to be improvements on caching and all that kind of stuff between these different generations of CPUs, but the raw specs are pretty similar, and in our testing, it was pretty close to the old Pangolin, but that is still a fantastic thing because even to this day, this is a CPU monster. And this is also where the specs are very, very similar. The GPU is exactly the same. We have the Radeon 780M, which is a shared memory GPU that is really more like an APU with the CPU in a very classic AMD fashion. So one thing that we can say is if you're looking for a GPU machine, this is going to be good for things like OpenCL, OpenGL, things like that. But if you're looking for something for specifically like DaVinci Resolve, which is notoriously very picky about its GPU on the Linux platform, this is not going to be the machine for you. But there are other great NLEs out there like Lightworks Pro or the one that we tested last time, Kdenlive. So if you do need to do some editing on the go using a laptop, while you're not going to get a great result with DaVinci Resolve, those editors are definitely going to be great, so it might not keep you from buying this laptop for video editing. The biggest difference in the specs for this generation of the Pangolin versus the old generation is the fact that the old generation only had a 32 gigabytes of soldered on RAM. This one, we're very happy to announce, does not have that, and you can go up to 96 gigabytes of RAM. That is a huge improvement over the last generation. We were very happy to see the fact that it was 32 gigabytes. It wasn't locked down to 16 or forbid 8 gigabytes of RAM. Luckily, it was a decent amount, but this generation, we can pick quite a lot of different options in the RAM department, which is very nice to see. Now, maybe my favorite improvement on this generation of the Pangolin versus the old generation is actually its display. The display on the last one was already fantastic. Now, it was 1080p, but it was very vibrant and it just felt great to be working on. And it also was a 60 hertz display. Well, they cranked this one up to 11. It's 2560 by 1600. It is a matte finish again, and it gets really nice and bright, just like the old generation did. But now we're talking 120 hertz. So a nice doubled refresh rate, and it is very visible. I love being able to go up to about 120 hertz or so. Of course, there's a whole thing about whether you can actually tell the difference. Well, I can tell you this, between the old generation Pangolin and this generation Pangolin, that extra refresh rate is visible, and it's very nice to see. So great work, System76. Networking on this device, however, takes a little bit of a step backwards depending on who you are. It does have Wi-Fi 6E like the old generation, but this one does not include an Ethernet port. So if you're wanting to do any wired networking, you're not going to have that in this model. Now, of course, you could use a USB-C to Ethernet adapter. That's definitely an option and can be just as performant, but having it baked in on the old generation was nice if you're something like a sysadmin or you're just constantly having to get into a wired network. And to round out the networking, we have the same Bluetooth 5.2. Now let's take a look around the sides of this machine at the I/O. This one definitely does not disappoint. The previous generation was fantastic, and this one is right on par, minus that Ethernet port. We have 3 USB-As, same as last generation, and we now have 2 USB-C ports instead of the one that came on the previous generation. And then just like last time, we have a full HDMI. Now, we're getting a little bit of a downgrade in a way, going from a full SD card slot on the previous generation to now we have a micro SD card slot. We also have the ability for a barrel charger, which we'll get to in a second. And then there is a mic headphone combo jack and a privacy switch, which just like last time is a great way to make sure that you have a hardware shutoff to your mics and your webcam. Now let's talk power. Like I said, they both have the ability to do a barrel connector for power. Here's the interesting thing though. I don't know why they included that barrel connector. I mean, it's nice to have options for sure, but they did something with this generation that we are very glad to see here at No Plan. Now, this new generation of the Pangolin comes with a USB-C charger for 100 watts of power through USB-C. That is amazing. Barrel connectors should die a terrible death. I do not ever want to see them in a laptop going forward. It does not make sense why you wouldn't use USB-C at this point unless you really have to crank it past the capabilities of USB-C. And theirs is actually probably my favorite USB-C charger I've ever seen on a laptop. I have a Dell XPS 9500, and it uses this kind of old school clunky charging brick. It is USB-C, however, you got this giant, awful, ugly thing there. Well, the one that they include with the Pangolin is a nice cell phone reminiscent USB-C charger, and this thing can do 100 watts. The barrel connector from the last generation did 90 watts. So this is absolutely a huge improvement to this generation. It seems small, but when you're on the go and you just want to be able to plug in and charge places and stuff like that, USB-C power is incredible. And again, they did a fantastic job by having this tiny little brick and basically being able to use almost any USB-C that you want to for this thing.
Wait a second. Are you serious? You're not subscribed? No Plan has so much great content all over the place. Like this video we've got coming up about a $100 computer that we made to be able to edit 6K raw video. Whew, you need to subscribe for that.
Another thing that we definitely see different between this generation of the Pangolin and the last generation of the Pangolin is the fact that this is now a downsized battery from the previous 70 watt hour to this one being 57.75 watt hours. But the battery life on the last Pangolin was already fantastic, so while this may be a smaller battery, you're not going to be suffering for a, usable battery life here. And with all of that, we actually get a decrease in the weight. If you're looking for a powerful laptop that's nice and portable, this is a great one for you because the last one was 3.95 pounds, which already was a good weight, but this one's even lighter at 3.82 pounds. So there's the raw specs, and get those out of the way because the headline of this improvement on the Pangolin is the chassis. The chassis is not a spec, but it almost should be on this generation compared to the last one because I loved the last one. The keyboard was really good. It had just a really nice general feel, but now you've got just a really solid chassis. I mean, just look at this thing. I mean, it's gorgeous. I mean, this like ghost gray aluminum look that they've got going on with this generation is just incredible. And then also that touchpad, this touchpad is way nicer than the old one. I liked the old one well enough, but this one is just fantastic. It's nice and big. I mean, I don't know why more manufacturers don't include a larger touchpad like this. I mean, it's just fantastic to use. And then it does have good clicky buttons at the bottom of the touchpad, but they aren't dedicated buttons. And I like though that they included the outlines on the touchpad to make it feel a little bit easier to use. Something that is kind of sad, I loved the way the old Pangolin had the power button light around it. You press the power and you had that nice blue light up. This one does not have it. It's a very standard looking power switch, but that's still fantastic. But overall, this one just feels so much sturdier than the previous generation. Even though the last one was good, this one is just a nice step up, and it looks so much more premium. The materials they're using, it looks far more MacBook-like, as much as I don't want to use that term, but they do make a good piece of hardware. The other thing I like too is the cooling vents on the bottom. It's way easier and nicer to use than the previous generation. The previous generation had these giant jets out the back, which was fine, but it didn't feel like it was getting enough air to it. This one sitting on a desk actually feels like it's going to get plenty of airflow, and then sitting it on your lap also feels really nice. Now let's talk about the keyboard. The keyboard is a really nice step up from the last generation, but the clickiness is just so satisfying. And the last generation was one of the best keyboards I've ever used. And this one, probably even a little bit better than that one. Maybe the improvements on the chassis or something like that. Really great work on the keyboard. It just feels like you could type for days on this one, and it's just so satisfactory. The speakers, just like last generation, are passable, like most laptop speakers. They do sound pretty good, but they're not just blow your mind. Now, I am somebody that does get a little bit annoyed when reviewers dig on laptop speakers a little too much, because I mean, they are laptop speakers. We're not expecting some, great monitor setup or anything like that. And again, just like last time, the webcam is fine. It's a webcam. It does a pretty good job at being able to do video calls and stuff like that, but you're not going to be making the next Christopher Nolan movie. Now, we've talked about all the specs, the hardware of this machine, the chassis, which is just fantastic. Now let's talk about the software experience. This comes by default with POWAH, of course, which is System76 in-house Linux distro. Now, POWAH is starting to get very old. I mean, this one is 24.04, but that's to be expected. System76 is famously working on their Cosmic desktop environment, which is a fully Rust-based desktop environment, which we are very excited to see, and it's looking fantastic. I really just cannot wait for that desktop environment, but when you get this thing, do know that you're dealing with just a slightly older version of almost everything. It's not going to be something that's totally groundbreaking, but in classic POWAH fashion, you're going to have a nice, stable experience. And of course, it is GNOME, it is Linux. You can customize it, modernize it, make it feel the way you want it to. So closing it out, is this a worthwhile successor to the previous generation? Now, like I said, this does have a nicer Ryzen 9 CPU, but it's not that much greater than the previous generation. And it has the same 780M GPU. But that improved RAM, the improved chassis, everything else about this is a gorgeous improvement to the previous generation of the Pangolin, and really, really well done to System76. This I could absolutely see as my daily driver. I hated sending back the old one, but this one I hate sending back even more. For the sake of a benchmark, we're gonna call the previous generation of the Pangolin 100% Pangolin. This one is 120%. It's a nice 20% improvement over the previous generation. So if I were to go out and get this, I would be far more happy actually than I was with the previous Pangolin. So fantastic job, System76. It's a step in the right direction. Absolutely love this. And again, this is not sponsored. We are not being paid by System76 at all to say what we were saying. We just really do love their products here at No Plan. I bought myself a System76 Thelio Mirror, which you may have seen the review about. I have a launch keyboard. They make fantastic products. We love what they do, and we love what they're doing for Linux in the open source world. And this laptop would make somebody very, very happy to use, and I think that it would be a fantastic buy overall. If you enjoyed this video, you'll probably also enjoy this video where we took a look at the same model of Macintosh computer used in the Jurassic Park movies. Good soup.